All right, welcome to tutorial number 2 for Malvern's MalFramework. I know that I supposedly have made video or tutorial number 2 and 3 already, but I've changed 2 and 3 to 3 and 4 respectively because this will be video number 2. The reason is because I talked about it with Malvern, and I think it's best to just go over like an overview of what his framework is, how it works, and then specifically get into the individual files that you need to change, which would be like tutorial number 3, tutorial number 4, and the modules that are harder, a little bit harder to configure, and then go to the easier modules as the last videos. So for tutorial video number 2, we're just going to cover, what Malvern's framework is and quite
User left
simply
your
how it
channel.
works. So as you've known from video number 1 or tutorial number 1, you go to his GitHub to download it. But what the GitHub also shows is the file structure that you see when you unzip, after you've downloaded it, unzipped his framework. And
User joined your
I've
channel.
started another mission. It's the bright light one, but I've changed the name and I've actually changed the map. But we're just going to use it as an example to talk about his file structure. So when you first unzip his framework, you have these files and folders. You're missing the mission SQM because you haven't set a map that the mission is going to be played on, and you haven't opened anything in the editor. So once I've showed you, like in video 3, how to drop down that playable unit and save that, it creates that mission SQM. That's where that extra file comes from. But anyway, going into his file structure, the mission SQM, which isn't part of Malvern's framework, but it's the integral part of the mission itself, and where all the units are placed, the names of it. It's basically the mission file, or the heart of the mission. Heart or brain? I don't know, one of those two. Anyway, so for Malvern's files that are in here, you don't really need to mess with the README. It just talks a little bit about his framework, some links, some optional mods, the required mods. It's the same thing that you would see on his website right here on his GitHub. Don't worry about the license. Don't worry about this Description.ext for right now, but the things this Description.ext would handle is the respawn settings, submission settings, like who has permission to change the CBA settings whitelist, disable some radio channels, enable the debug console for the mission maker and logged in admin. Everything past these slashes is just like explanation or verbiage. If you have a slash before it, it basically is commenting it out, so the ARMA engine isn't reading that or anything after this commenting out. Anyways, enable target debugging would be handled in this Description.ext. The garbage collection, the rec manager, and then tasks, whether it's 2D, 3D, and whether they propagate to subordinates. Right now they're zeros, which means it's not using any. So like if you wanted 3D markers, you change that to 1, it's going to use 3D markers. And if you have it propagate from like the squad leader down to the other team members, then you would put 1 right here. You don't need to worry about anything else in there. Then you have the CBA Settings file. So this is a file that automatically basically sets up the CBA settings within that mission. It can be overwritten by the server itself, but you can come in here and change whatever settings that you need to change. For example, We would probably change this to, if we're playing on, FK servers and FK Discord, this would be tfar auxiliary channel, probably because it's being played on FK4, and that's the default password. Right here is where all the channels are set, which is where you saw in video 3. Malbran had he had configured the tfar module, or pre-configured it with these frequencies and channels, which are based off of FK and are also written in the CBA settings like you just saw right here. Now we have Malbran's, the mission framework, why it's easier to use his mission making framework to make your mission. In here you have 2 other folders. The configuration files are in here, and those are the ones that you'll manipulate. You turn modules on, you turn modules off. You would like configure the gear scripts. These are just default what he's done. CTRG 2035. That's why in, I think, video number 2 or 3, LCID had CTRG gear, because remember we had given him the squad leader for the gear script, so that's why he had all that stuff. But we would change all this to SOG Vietnam if that's the mission you're doing. But for the mission I'm working on, it'll be SOG equipment. If it's team versus team, you have red 4 and blue 4. You would configure both. But if you're only doing co-op, if they're blue 4, that's the gear script you modify. If it's red 4, that's the gear script you'd modify. But anyways, in here is where you'll be doing most of the modifications to make his mission framework work for whatever mission you're making. And what like the configuration SQF would do, like come down here to tfar. Do I want to use the tfar module for co-op or team versus team? I would change false to true if I'm using tfar. And what that basically does is you go into the core. The core or modules is like his scripts that he has in the mission that you're turning on or turning off. So technically, if you didn't use tfar, you could delete this tfar folder out of here and it wouldn't matter because it's not using that script. But if we're using the tfar module, then he has his script and code all in here, and that's what makes it work, for lack of an easier way of explaining it. If I was using acre, or I wanted to use acre, I would turn off tfar in the Config.sqf, and I would come up to the acre module and I would turn it on. And if I'm going to use Babel, which is a feature of acre, I would turn that on as well. But that's mainly for team versus team. So if the other team killed one of the other team members and grabbed his radio, you wouldn't be able to understand comms because it would be in a different language. That's what that Babel's used for. So anyways, yeah, I would turn off tfar, turn on acre, and that's what activates that module. And that's simply how, a broad overview his framework works. As we've talked about before, the Description.hpp is where you would change the like the mission maker's Steam ID. This gives you the admin menu and the debug console that's written into his framework. You can turn off or turn on VCOM AI. He tells you what game mode you want to use and how many players, min max. Remember, I think I set it to 9 for my Bright Light mission, which is now called Operation Jenna. So min players 1, max players 9. Put some overview text in there. Put a description, and I've even added a custom picture, which I put in the image folder, and that's the custom picture that instead of showing this during mission load, it shows that. I think that's it for covering the overview of his framework. And the next, see, video 3, 4, and then we'll start with video 5, I guess, going specifically through, I believe the Config.sqf will be next. All right, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Ask Malvern, ask another mission maker. Thank you.